Welcome back to The Explainer. Listen, if you've ever felt like your organization's learning and development programs are, well, just a mandatory checklist, a box HR needs you to tick off, get ready. We are fundamentally shifting that perspective today. We're not talking about L&D as just some nice-to-have employee perk anymore. Instead, we're going to look at it as a meticulously engineered business investment. Today, we're unpacking the insights from Guy W. Wallace's The 7 Levers of L&D Return on Investment, and we're going to learn exactly how to make sure every single training effort actually impacts the bottom line.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a quote that hits you straight in the wallet. Never spend a buck that doesn't return tens of bucks someday, and the sooner, the better. That captures the pure shareholder perspective perfectly, right? Every single dollar we pour into training, learning experiences, or performance support absolutely has to be justified by an outsized return down the road. It's just basic business 101. Honestly, if your L&D is returning less than it costs to produce, it's simply an inferior business practice. We need to be investing our resources only where the stakes are high.
So here's our cognitive roadmap for today. 1. The L&D ROI problem. 2. The 7 Levers framework. 3. 3 tiers of alignment. 4. Steering projects to success. And 5. Modeling real-world performance.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the L&D ROI problem, driving business results.
Now, what's really interesting here is this sharp contrast, and I want you to ask yourself a pretty tough question right now. Is your current learning and development output truly driving measurable business results, or are you guys just spinning your wheels, churning out courses, and draining the budget? On one side, we have what we can call the L&D artist colony. This is where you see a ton of one-off projects, this generic blanketing of broad content to absolutely everyone, and a heavy focus on just tracking learning activities, counting how many butts are in seats or how many clicks a website gets. But on the flip side is where we absolutely need to be, the L&D engineering department. In this world, everything is targeted, it's systematic, and it is focused exclusively on real-world performance requirements. We aren't making art here. We are engineering actual business solutions.
To really understand why we absolutely must take this engineering approach, we have to look at the whole financial picture. The truth, L&D is incredibly expensive. And the cost isn't just in the initial development of a course, which is, unfortunately, where most people stop counting. You've got this massive, multi-stage financial burden across the entire life cycle. I'm talking about program planning, product inventory, ongoing administration, the pure logistics of deployment, and constant, never-ending maintenance. If you build it and employees show up via plane, train, or even just your company internet, all of that costs money. And remember, any cost you avoid by simply not building unnecessary training stays right on the bottom line as pure profit. Moving on to Section 2, the 7 Levers framework, maximizing L&D efficiency.
And this brilliantly illustrates the overarching framework designed by Guy W. Wallace to ensure those L&D dollars are spent with maximum impact. Take a second to really think about how all these different systems interlock. You've got content reuse, development systems, inventory, administration, maintenance, and deployment all bundled together in this massive, forward-moving system. This is what a truly engineered approach to L&D actually looks like. It's a connected, holistic system where every single part supports the final delivery, rather than just being some disorganized set of isolated tasks.
So the absolute most crucial point is right at the very front of that whole process. Lever 1, targeting performance. This singular lever literally drives the other 6. Think of it like the very tip of a spear. If you don't aim your L&D efforts at the correct business needs, and by that I mean high-stakes performance, where the financial risks or rewards are actually significant, well, the rest of those interconnected levers simply do not matter. You could literally have the best deployment system in the world, but if you're deploying the wrong training, you are just failing efficiently. Which brings us to Section 3, 3 tiers of alignment, aiming L&D effectively. If we know we absolutely must target high-stakes performance to get real ROI, how do we actually aim that spear? Well, we need a formal alignment mechanism. In a medium to large enterprise, you can't just guess what the business needs, right? And executives can't always see the ground-level problems clearly either. So this system is the formal mechanism where real concrete business requests flow up from the bottom, and strategic decisions, along with the necessary resources and funding, flow back down from the top.
Let's break this down sequentially and treat it a bit like a relay race. First, at the very top, you have the governance board. These are your senior executives acting as stewards. They're the ones allocating resources, and they only do it for high payback needs. Then, they hand the baton to the advisory councils. These are functional representatives who prioritize specific needs based on their actual job expertise, like, say, gathering all the pressing needs for the sales engineering team. Finally, the baton passes down to the project steering teams. These are hand-picked stakeholders who actually manage and execute the specific L&D efforts. So to recap, executives fund it, functional reps prioritize it, and stakeholders execute it.
All right, Section 4, steering projects to success, executing L&D efforts. So we've got the funding and the priority. Now let's zoom in on the ground level to see exactly how those project steering teams manage a specific instructional architecture effort without letting the whole thing run off the rails. The primary tool for keeping things anchored is the gate review meeting. Let's rapid fire through the 5 W's and an H framework to see how this plays out. Who? The client and all the stakeholders who will be impacted. What? Formal data reviews and hard concrete decision-making. Where? Face-to-face is usually best, but highly disciplined virtual meetings work too. When? Exactly at the end of key project phases. Why? To provide command and control for stakeholders and empowerment for L&D. And how? By following a strict, logical agenda so everyone is on the exact same page. No artistic whims allowed.
I actually want to pause and highlight that why because it is absolutely crucial. Command and control for stakeholders and empowerment for L&D. Explain to your teams that this dual dynamic is the real secret sauce here. The business leaders get the tight oversight they demand to ensure their money is being spent wisely, and the L&D professionals, they get the exact resources, organizational access, and support they need to succeed. It literally transforms what can be an adversarial relationship into a powerful working partnership.
Finally, Section 5, modeling real-world performance, analyzing real work. Now we're at the absolute micro level, where we actually analyze the work being done on the job to figure out what training even needs to be built. When L&D gets to work analyzing a role, they map out a performance model. On one side of this model, we document ideal performance. This is the perfect scenario, showing the exact outputs required, the measures of success, and the specific tasks needed to get there. But let's be real, perfection is pretty rare. So on the flip side, we capture gap performance. This details exactly where the typical non-master employees are falling short of those ideal standards. But listen, just identifying a performance gap isn't enough. We have to diagnose exactly why it's happening before we spend a single dime. We categorize the root causes of these gaps into 4 specific buckets. Is it DP, a deficiency in the process itself? Is it DE, a deficiency in the environment? Is it DK, a deficiency in knowledge and skills? Or DI, a deficiency in individual attributes? This categorization proves a massive point. There is no way every performance issue can be solved by training. I mean, if the workplace environment is lacking the right tools, that's a DE. All the L&D training in the world is not going to fix that gap.
However, once we actually isolate a true knowledge and skill gap, that DK we just talked about, we can systematically derive the required enablers straight from our performance model. We never ever just guess what an employee needs to know. We map it directly to 17 specific categories. For example, if there's a gap in compliance, we might pull from Category 1, company policies and procedures they absolutely must follow, or Category 2, laws, regulations, and codes governing their work. The resulting training content is strictly engineered straight from the actual performance requirements of the job.
Which brings us to the ultimate question you need to ask yourself and your entire team tomorrow morning. Are you building instruction just because you can, or because it makes concrete, measurable business sense to the shareholder? It is time to leave the L&D artist colony behind for sure. Start aligning with your executives, ruthlessly target those high-stakes performance gaps, and engineer true learning and development return on investment. I really hope this framework shifts how you look at your next big project. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and stay focused out there.